and we're going to make this a fun, educational time spent here. My name is Craig Colley. I'm the Advisory Board Co-Chairman here at Madera Futuro, a.k.a. Precious Timber. Joining me this evening is the company President and CEO, Alex Wilson. Good evening, Alex.
How are you doing, my friend? Good?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Tonight we're going to be covering our upcoming timber and coconut discovery tour to Nicaragua. The next one being in a few weeks, March 21st and 22nd. That's a Saturday and Sunday. We still have a few open spaces for those dates. If you're interested in seeing the plantations up close, you can send us an email at the bottom of the screen, and we'll send you a complete itinerary. During the webinar, if you have any questions, you can use the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer them during this session. If we don't get to them, we will answer them via email. If you want to ask a private question, please email us anytime at info@precioustimber.com. Tonight, we will be covering 3 points. Alex is going to cover number 1, which is timber and coconuts, why the wealthy love alternative assets. Together, we're going to cover the tour overview, what to expect in the tour. And number 3 is going to be testimonials for people who have actually been on the tour and have experienced it firsthand. So without any further ado, here is Alex.
Thank you, Craig, and I appreciate you setting this up and getting this organized for us. Welcome, everyone, and my name's Alex Wilson. I'm the CEO and President of Madera Futuro. Tonight, we're going to mainly talk about the tour. I do want to run a few things by you beforehand, starting off with the word investing and looking at that word and then comparing it with the two beneath it, wealth creation and wealth preservation, because they are two very different things. A lot of people spend all their life investing, and very few people, at least I've met, spend any time at all thinking about wealth creation and wealth preservation. We'll go over those things briefly. On the screen, you have 3 gentlemen that certainly are very, very wealthy. Maybe you can recognize all 3. Maybe you can recognize 1 or 2. But there's something that the ultra-wealthy do that the average investor simply does not do. And I want to point out what that is tonight for you as we move along. Now, of course, there's one thing that makes average investors very different from the ultra-wealthy, from the billionaires of the world, and that is they have all the money. And I'm not particularly concerned about how they got their money. What I am concerned about, what I've always been focused on, is how they manage to keep it and how they manage to make it grow exponentially generation to generation. And the reason, quite simply, is they invest very, very differently than the average investor does. The average investor finds themselves in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance products, real estate, and cash. In fact, most portfolios across the U.S., in my experience, are generally allocated this way: 70% stocks, 30% something else. A lot of people tell me they have their brokerage accounts and they spend a lot of time online searching for that one company that's pre-IPO, or maybe something that's has got a good chance to multiply. Most average investors are certainly not global investors, and so with 70% of someone's portfolio tied to the stock market, it's a very different approach when you're talking about how the wealthy do it. May I recommend a book for you? If you're interested in research and studying and education, I'd like to recommend Bob Rice's book, The Alternative Answer. And it's actually the subtitle that I want you to focus in on: the non-traditional investments that drive the world's best performing portfolios. You see, whilst the average investor since the year 2000 has basically taken 15 years just to get even, the alternative investor has seen their portfolios double, double, and double again. And in fact, in the inside cover of the book, it talks about Yale University and how they only keep 6% of their portfolio in the stock market. Harvard, for example, on the screen also, they have fully 10% of their portfolio, and their portfolio is a $30 billion endowment fund. 10% is invested in precious timber in Central and South America. So you can see the wealthy do things a lot different than the average. And one of the things the wealthy absolutely love and have used as a core component of their portfolio for actually centuries, because most of the forests on the planet are privately held. They're held by families that generationally pass that forestry land onto their heirs. And what they like particularly about forestry is this. When you invest in a very small sapling. You're planting a baby tree. And then what the wealthy like to do with asset classes, they like to find those asset classes where it's relatively inexpensive to join and access, meaning an individual tree doesn't cost much, of course, but then they like to forget about it. They don't like to keep watching it. And of course, over time, a little sapling is going to biologically grow in volume until you end up with an unbelievably valuable log. Now, whether that's softwoods or whether that's hardwoods, and we're only in the hardwood business, that's the kind of asset class that the wealthy like to own. Let me talk to you about one particular wealthy individual that manages billion-dollar portfolios. In fact, Jeremy Grantham of GMO manages over $110 billion. And in a recent newsletter to his clients, Jeremy said, timber is the only low-risk, high-return asset class there is. He said not only is it the only low-risk, high-return asset class, it's the best long-term investment there is, period. Nothing has touched it. Here's a chart that shows on the right-hand side the returns of timber from 1987 to 2002, averaging 15%, when the bond and index and S&P were anemic in comparison. So timber, not just over the last 30, 40 years, but if you go even further, you'll find that it's been the best performing asset class for a considerable amount of time, better than stocks, better than bonds, better than real estate, and yes, way better than precious metals. So let's go back to these three billionaires, and let's see if you can name them. The gentleman in the middle, that's John Malone. John Malone made his billions in media. John Malone is the USA's largest timberland owner, 2.5 million acres of timber. Next to him on the right is Ted Turner. Ted Turner's the second largest timber owner in America, 2.2 million acres. And the young whippersnapper on the left-hand side, that's Brad Kelly. He's a recent billionaire, the last decade or so. He started a tobacco firm, sold it for many billions, and put $1 billion into timber. That's really enough about timber tonight. If you'd like some information, if you're joining us for the first time and you really don't have any base knowledge of timber, Craig, why don't you share with our guests tonight how they can get our free white pages?
Yes, as we go along here, if you're interested in any information, you can call us at 855-888-6288, log on to PreciousTimber.com, or email us at info@PreciousTimber.com.
Thanks so much, Craig. Before we get into talking about the tour coming up, let's also look at what the super wealthy like. They particularly like asset classes that generate perpetual income, income-producing assets, not only producing income in the medium term, but particularly for them, because they're long-term investors, they like that income to be of the kind that keeps on coming. And so what do they own? Well, for example, they own a lot of real estate, a lot of commercial real estate, a lot of high-end hotel buildings where large hotel chains, for example, will maybe not particularly own the building, but they'll lease the building. The super wealthy love the agricultural space. They love the fact that real estate, first of all, they're real estate, they love real estate, but what they like particularly about the agricultural space is, unlike commercial real estate and unlike traditional residential real estate, which is what the average investor finds themselves investing in most of the time when it comes to real estate, those things go up and down like a yo-yo. I mean, we had this boom from 2000 to 2007, and then look what happened. You really don't get that in agricultural real estate. Obviously, there's increases and decreases in values, but there's no huge mountainous climbs, and there's no cavernous drops either. And, of course, on that ground, there's less and less of it, first of all. I mean, with the population explosion, and the availability of arable farmland is getting more and more difficult to find. But of course, you can grow some things on there, especially if it's an annualized crop. So they love things like that. And more recently, they've come to love the coconut tree, in particular Pepsi-Cola. Pepsi-Cola now is the world's largest coconut grower. They grow more coconuts than anyone in the entire world. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons. We don't have time to get into it tonight on all of the reasons. But I do want to point out, I hope you can see there's a big difference between what the average investor invests in, which is on the screen now, things like the stock market, up and down like a yo-yo, oil. We just had oil go from $100 down to less than $50. Gold was at $1,900 an ounce 2 years ago. Now it's down to $1,100, $1,200. The average investor finds themselves in asset classes very different than the super wealthy. So back to the education part, we talked about the alternative answer. Let me give you another couple of tips. Also, pop on Amazon and get yourself The Affluent Investor, a great book. Also, Money Does Grow on Trees, another tremendous faith-based book that I recommend. Here's something, prior to us getting to the next topic, Craig, that I'd like to just cover. The average investor, in my opinion, really truly doesn't understand wealth creation. They certainly don't understand wealth preservation. And in fact, the reason I say that is because the wealthy believe that having liquidity, having a short-term mentality, which is what most average investors have, they want to have liquidity, and there's a reason for that. Most multi-millionaires will tell you that short-term thinking is the biggest enemy of your long-term financial success. When you're in asset classes that zig and zag and go up and down like a roller coaster, it's very difficult for you to be able to compound the returns. Now, I talked about liquidity briefly. Here's why the average investor loves, they just absolutely love having liquidity. Can I sell if I want to quickly? Listen, they love it for a lot of reasons, but certainly the wealthy, they hate liquidity. In fact, the most successful investor on the planet says if you're not willing to own it for at least 10 years, don't own it for 10 minutes. Here's the number one reason the average investor loves liquidity. Because they're right here. This is where they're invested. Of course you need liquidity. It's very difficult to stay disciplined. When the stock market falls like it did in 2008, 34%. It's very difficult when oil drops 50% for you not to get emotional. Of course you want to exit. Unfortunately, short-term thinking is your biggest enemy. And the average investor is definitely a short-term investor compared to the wealthy that think longer terms. Let me give you an example of what $100,000 invested into precious timber in the Central American tropics where we operate can do for the average portfolio. $100,000 will be a deeded 5-acre fee simple piece of real estate, agricultural farmland, planted with almost 2,000 trees. And after a 15 to 18-year period, those trees are ready for harvest. And after management expenses from harvesting those trees, you have a net of almost $640,000. Now, if you were told today that you were buying XYZ Corporation at $1 a share, and 15 years from now, the Dawn shares were going to be worth 6 times their amount, regardless of whether the market was zigging, zagging, or up and down, you'd hold on to that stock because you knew it was going to be worth 6 times your money. Of course, you can't predict that in the stock market, but a sapling doesn't care about the stock market, doesn't care about the economy, doesn't care about the wars or the societal sort of chaos that goes on. A tree grows every single day, doesn't listen to CNN, doesn't watch the financial news. So it's really immune to the marketplace. That's why the super wealthy like it. Same with coconuts. Coconut trees don't care whether the sun's shining from the east or the west. And $100,000 in coconuts, once the trees are mature, perpetually generating a very nice return on investment. So once again, Craig, we have white pages for timber. We have white pages for coconuts. Please share with our attendees tonight how they can grab a copy of each one of those.
Yeah, once again, you can call us at the number 855-888-6288. Log on to PreciousTimber.com or email us at info@PreciousTimber.com. Now we'll want to also remind you that our next Discovery Tour is coming up in just a couple weeks. It's a Saturday and Sunday, and planning pretty much an all-day affair on March 21st and 22nd to Nicaragua. Now, moving on to our next subject, we're going to talk about Nicaragua, and most people get a shiver up their spine when they think about it. But we know as being invested into the country, into the land, and doing business down there, going down there for leisurely vacation, that country is nowhere near what it used to be. Alex, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. The slide on the screen now is what most Americans kind of envision when they hear the word Nicaragua. Now, I will preface this by saying most Americans over the age of 40, they immediately go to the negative. If you're 40 years or younger, you know, you were a toddler, you were a kid 36 years ago when this was going on. And so for 40-year-olds, they hear the word Nicaragua and they go, wow, that sounds exciting. That sounds like a place that I want to go to. But for us old guys, you know, we remember the stuff that happened in 1979. But, you know, quite frankly, it was a remarkable story, really, because Nicaragua, up until 1979, was run by a dictator that was funded by Washington, D.C., and it wasn't until 5 young guys that were educated got themselves together and decided that they had to overthrow the dictator so that they could give the citizens of the country an opportunity. It took them a long time. It took them a decade before what happened in 1989 that's on the screen now, when Nicaraguans had for the very first time, Craig, the very first time they had the opportunity to do what we're so used to doing every 4 years, and that's putting a check mark next to the name. 1989, they had the chance to vote for who it was they wanted to lead their country. And since Violeta Chamorro was the first president, and on now 25 years that's passed, a remarkable transformation has happened in Nicaragua. People have an unbelievable chance at having what we all take for granted. So it's a wonderful part of the world. It's not the Nicaragua of 1979. And in fact, Craig, why don't you, if you will please, for a minute or two, I remember when I told you about Nicaragua 15 years ago, and what did you do? Did you do your own research?
Well, yeah, when I first was brought this opportunity from Alex and our partner Ken down, who does reside in Nicaragua, I thought the same thing. And then when we started going down and look at the opportunity down there, I realized that it was kind of the same scenario as I relate to Germany and Japan and Korea and Vietnam. Those were all places we had terrible things going on, but now things are different. Same in Nicaragua. I learned firsthand that this is a country that was evolving. This is a country that had choices that it never had before. This is a country that had a youthful population, was eager to grow and to become not so much impoverished as they had been. The real estate opportunities that presented themselves at the time were fantastic. And I always looked at Nicaragua as California about 100 years ago, about 10, 15 degrees warmer all the time, and a place where the beaches are still pristine, and there's really not that many people down there. I can say in the last 10 years I've seen more and more Americans going down there, enjoying themselves, investing in this property, investing in these opportunities down there. And the biggest change I've seen from the last trip that we were down in January was that the dollar is now accepted as currency in most of the establishments, even on the menus, even on the poster boards and things like that. When you go in to order a coffee, it's in American dollars. It makes it so much easier to experience the country and not to have to go through the hassle of changing currency. English is still spoken, not as much as you would think, but fairly easy to get around. Plenty of people speak English there, and it's just a wonderful experience. In fact, about 10 years ago, I took my fiancée down there and proposed to her on one of these beautiful beaches, and foolishly, she said yes. So I've got some great experiences with Nicaragua, and what we've now developed is even more fantastic.
Well, thank you, Craig. And I can tell you, Nicaragua today is trusted, it's safe, and you talk about some of those changes. Last year, almost 1.3 million tourists went to Nicaragua. Some of them were in Costa Rica and came up, and Costa Rica, of course, has been on the people's radar screen for a long time. Everything about Costa Rica you'll find in Nicaragua, there's just more of it because Nicaragua is 2 or 3 times the size. In fact, you'll find 5-star resorts, very expensive places to stay. You'll find that beach. It's right there on the top picture of the middle of the screen. That's where Craig. I don't know what the heck Karen was thinking, but obviously she must know something that I don't, Craig. 64 cruise ships came in last year, tens of thousands of people. Nicaragua is a beautiful country, especially if you're an adventurer. I mean, you've probably seen on TV, Survivor Nicaragua, Survivor San Juan del Sur. Talk about wonderful flora, fauna, wildlife. Hey, check out Nicaragua online, do your own research. That's a little bit about the country. I can tell you recently, Craig, you mentioned this to me, and I put it on the slide tonight.
Yeah, in the Huffington Post, they posted an article, 13 Reasons to Get to Nicaragua Before Everyone Else Does and Discovers It. Absolutely true. Forbes lists a new reason to go to Nicaragua now. All these things are rolling out, and you can do the research yourself. Just Google it and pull up the information. We're not trying to present you any kind of hype that isn't valid. Everything we post is what we have found ourselves.
Listen, big businesses in Nicaragua already. The top picture is Price Smart, which is Costco. Thank God it's Fridays. People are mining for gold, whether you're in the energy generation business, whether you're in the manufacturing business, whether you're in the farming and agricultural business. Billions and billions of dollars are flooding into Nicaragua. I couldn't find, oh, there it is. I did find a slide about the canal.
I got it.
A $50 billion canal is supposed to be built. It's the same route that the Americans wanted to take the Panama Canal when the Americans took the job over in Panama in 1905. So I don't know. I mean, this is still early days. They started minor construction on the canal last month. But let me tell you, the interest in the country from Europe, from Asia, from South America, it's phenomenal right now. We've been in the country for 15 years. We've been operating in the country now for 15 years. As myself, my business partner Ken, who, by the way, is married a Nicaraguan and moved permanently to Nicaragua. Ken does not come home to the U.S. anymore. He's been living in Nicaragua now permanently for 13 years. He's a volunteer for the U.S. Embassy, is the U.S. Embassy's warden. And then our very first employee that we employed back in 2000, Hugo Rodriguez, part of our team. And then in the upper right-hand corner is the family that we've joined hands and partnership with for the agricultural oversight and management. This family's been in agriculture for 35 years, a father, 2 sons, and we have over 150 permanent staff, and our employee base can go from anywhere from 150 to 800 people during the busy season, which is coming up in 2 or 3 months when we start to plant. Craig, you were on the tour just recently. I'm going to let you share about the tour.
Yeah, it was really nice. We have a full itinerary set up for both days, so not only do you see the plantations firsthand and the different growth patterns of the trees and coconuts, but you also get to see some beautiful parts of the country, which is just as much the experience as anything. One of my favorite spots is on the first day we stop in an area that to have lunch, and we overlook a dormant volcano that is now flooded into a lake, and you see it from above, and it's huge water mass that's actually atop the volcano. I had never seen anything like that in my life, just breathtaking views. And the opportunity to socialize with people from all around the world that come down and check out the experience. And one of the fun parts is some people are coming down for the first time. Some people have already invested in the timber and the coconuts. They're coming down to see their trees and coconuts for the first time. So one of the most enjoyable parts is some of those investors who have come to see their trees, and we take pictures with them, and they see actually something growing out of the ground that they own, and they know long-term what that means to them, along with a great social experience. So it's a really fun time as well.
In fact, if I can add, Craig, our corporate philosophy is not just profit. Of course, we're a for-profit company, but The two primary reasons that we stayed in the country when we first visited in the early 2000s is because we fell in love with the people. And so we're people-generated and people-focused just as much as we are environmentally. We focus on people, we focus on planet, we focus on profit. And, you know, we're not taking forests and cutting them down. We're actually taking those forests that were once, those areas that were once forested, that were devastated and deforested by the regime from the late 1800s through to the early 1900s. We're a sustainable reforestation company, and so we're adding value to the planet, we're adding value to people, giving them long-term jobs, and of course we're adding value to our bottom line as well. A couple of other things, you know, we're very socially conscious. We certainly appreciate that Nicaragua has given us this opportunity. We're very grateful for the things that we're learning, but we're also able to recognize things. Now, you do the same. Anyone would do the same. We noticed a year or so ago that half the kids in the schools were sitting on the floor during classroom time. So, of course, we're in the timber business. We make a lot of chairs and donate them to schools. It's not just creating a job. The older Nicaraguans that fought in the revolution, they need some help. Kids need educating. Some of the kids need backpacks and shoes so they can go to school. So listen, we do well financially by doing good socially and environmentally. If you join us on the tour, Craig, what are you going to see?
You're going to see our tree plantations. You're going to see rows and rows and rows of beautiful mahogany, cedar trees, along with the coconut plantations, and also get a vast education from the people who are actually there working on these plantations, not just sales pitch and hype. This is the real deal. This is exactly what we are sharing here, and what you're going to see is actually what happens long term with these sapling plantings all the way to harvest.
Yeah, you'll see a nursery that is where we create the saplings all the way to our mill and even a really large mill in Managua. You'll see young trees. You'll see older trees. You'll get to see every aspect of our plantations. Many locations. We won't be able to take you to every single location. We'll probably take you to 3, 4, or 5 locations. One thing that you'll do, Craig, they'll have a lot of fun, right?
They'll have a lot of fun. This picture is a picture of us in January. Behind us, it's a little hard to see, but there's two volcanoes in the background with one of the world's largest lakes behind us. And the opposite view where the cameraman is the Pacific Ocean. And this is on top of one of the upper areas of the tree plantation. You can see the faces and the smiles. This is all real.
If you don't mind getting on a four-legged creature as well, we'll take you around our coconut plantation on horseback. It was fun to watch those of us that didn't want to get on a horse and those that did. Yeah, you'll see our coconut plantation. We'll actually cut open some coconuts and give you some fresh coconut water. You'll get to meet our coconut expert. Leslie is heading up our coconut project. He and his family have been in the coconut business for 33 years. Not only are we working closely with him for planting, last year we planted 30,000 coconut trees. This year we'll plant approximately 150,000 coconut trees. You'll get to eat fabulous food. I mean, the food is the one thing that our guests tell us. First of all, there's too much food, and it's very, very nice. And then finally, the bottom right-hand corner, you'll get to have a Q&A session. You'll get to meet the attorneys. You'll get to ask your questions about fee simple real estate. Owning real estate in Central America is just like owning real estate in the U.S. Fee simple, in your name. You can put it in an LLC. You can put it in a partnership. You can put it inside of a self-directed IRA, in a trust. It's not like it is in parts of the world where you have to have a local partner. No, this is fee simple real estate. Craig, when's the next tour?
The next tour is just in a couple weeks on a Saturday and Sunday, March 21st and 22nd. And we invite you guys to seriously take a look at that. We still have a few spaces open, and I know you'd have a fantastic time experiencing Nicaragua for all the things that we've explained thus far in our presentation.
Okay. Sorry, Craig.
There we go. And the best part is the tour is free. All you got to do is get yourself there. And we'll help you with information on flights and accommodations. We have all that information as well. For more information as we go along, you can always log into our website at precioustimber.com, phone number 855-888-6288, or email us at info@precioustimber.com. Now it's time to bring on some of our investors and who have actually been there. It sounds like we got some feedback going on a little bit there. To ask you, okay,
yeah, if anyone has their, it's either Dan, Francie, or John. If you have, if you're listening to this on the computer, we're getting a little echo from the speakers. So why don't we take Dan first? I think I saw Dan come on very early. Dan, I'll let Craig ask you a couple of questions. Yeah. I think you were down on the same trip that Craig was on.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan, you can hear me okay? Dan, can you hear me all right?
Doesn't sound like Dan can hear Craig, so let me...
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear Craig and myself?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
When did you first become interested in timber and agriculture?
The question was, Dan, when did you first become interested in timber and agriculture?
I think we've lost Dan. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we have Francie on the phone. Francie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hey, how you doing, Francie?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good. Let me ask you the same question that Craig tried to ask Dan. When did you first discover or hear about timber or agriculture?
Well, I think it was through the Living and Investing conferences. I met up with a man by the name of David Drummond from Georgetown Trust that knew all about it and thought that would be a good thing for me to look into. So I did.
Fantastic. Do you believe that this space makes sense as a portfolio allocation?
Yes, I love it. I am the most comfortable with the plantations, more so than probably anything else I've ever done.
What impressed you most about the country and what you saw down there?
Well, I was quite surprised at, it was very beautiful and everything, but it was quite third world. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit more upscale than it is. And all that kind of did was motivate me to make sure that I do invest, because I saw how your company employs so many of these people, and I think that that's just a very, very good thing for Nicaragua.
What would you say to anyone considering visiting to make them feel a little more comfortable with the experience?
Well, I wasn't uncomfortable with it. It was just, well, I think maybe I had been to Panama City and to Belize, and it seemed like it was a little bit, well, more touristy maybe. And so when I really saw how, they live off at like $200 a day, that kind of thing, I was like, well, they sure need jobs because so many of them don't even have them.
$200 a month, actually.
Excuse me, month. Yeah.
Panama is Panama's had the influence of the dollar for 100 years. So Panama City, for example, I joke about Panama City, and I tell people that Panama City reminds me a little bit like Miami Beach. The only difference is more people speak English in Panama City. But you're right. The opportunities in Panama, the opportunities in Belize have long since passed us. It was, 30 years ago, people should have been going to Panama. 30 years ago, you should have been going to Costa Rica or Belize. And so certainly Nicaragua has a long way to go. But you probably also noticed in Managua, you probably noticed in San Juan del Sur, most everybody at least had a job, whereas 15, 20 years ago, they were living on $500 a year as opposed to $200 a month now.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Which state are you from, Francie?
Washington.
And did you travel to Nicaragua alone, or did you go in a group?
I just came by myself.
Did you at any time feel unsafe?
No, I didn't always exactly know what I was doing, but I didn't feel unsafe.
And what did you think about the plantations?
I think that they're just put together very well. I don't see a reason for them not to succeed. I think that I just think that you people have put together, you know, a scheduled program that seems to be working just fine. I like the fact that it's by the water, so there's not irrigation situations, future or present. I don't know. I think that there's no reason for the projections not to come out like they should.
Thank you very much. We're going to bring on John. John just got back. John, where are you from, John? Which state are you from?
Can you hear me all right, Alex?
Well, here you're fine. How are you doing tonight?
Okay, great. Doing well. Yeah, I live in Atlanta. Spent most of my professional life in New Orleans.
You just got back from the trip. In fact, you were in Costa Rica as well. I remember.
That's right. Yeah, my wife and I went on a trip to Costa Rica, and I was looking at your program, and I thought, well, as long as I'm down here, let me run up and look at Madeiras. And I'm very happy I did. It basically answered all of my questions to be able to see what's going on there and see the land and, you know, see how great it is and all of that. It was a very good experience.
How did you first learn about the experience? How did you first learn about this opportunity?
Well, I've been looking at, I've been successful in the stock market, and the stock market's been, you know, in a bull market for 6 years. And so, you know, that's not going to last forever. So I've been looking for alternative investments because of that, and also as a legacy to fund my grandchildren's college educations. And they're 3 and 6, so the timing works out very well with this. And I tried some other, I've been poking around at agricultural investments for almost 2 years, but I didn't like the way that they were set up. They would be partnerships where you really don't own anything, and all kinds of other kinds of things going on. You know, what you're offering is real ownership of land, real trees planted on that land. There's a lot of comfort built into this investment.
What would you say was the most surprising element of the trip, the big takeaway after you had gone through the whole experience?
I really like, well, I like two things, I guess. I really loved the Costa Rican people when I was there, and came up to Nicaragua, and I found the same people, only they didn't have as much money. You know, it's that same, there's a lot of warmth. I never felt endangered at any time. I walked all over San Juan del Sur and farther up, and you know, it just doesn't ring as a dangerous environment. But I think what really impressed me was the situation where the land. So you've got very rich volcanic soils. You've got lots of water, both in the rainy season and also when the trees get big enough, the water that seeps out of Lake Nicaragua towards the Pacific. And you've got a really hot sun. So there is plenty of energy to grow those plants. So
I met on the spot Ken Ross. How did that work out with Ken?
Oh, very nice. Yeah, Ken took me, we spent a couple hours on 2 different days going all over. I think I probably saw 4 of your 5 hardwood plantations and one of the coconut plantations. And he took me up some of these crazy roads I guess he found when he was surfing down there 30 years ago. And it was a great experience.
Thank you, John. I think Dan is back on the line. Dan, are you back with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you well. How are you doing, Dan?
Oh, great. I followed your instructions on the phone thing, and it just didn't work, though.
Okay, you're perfect. Would you tell us which state are you from and when you were on the tour last?
Well, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina most recently, but I've lived in many parts of the United States. And I think the last tour you had was in January, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
when we were there. Lovely tour, lovely people.
So what is it about the alternative investment that really attracted you to take a look at this?
Well, you could drive yourself crazy with most other types of investment. I think this is one of the most stable ways to invest. It's certainly close to nature, and the simpler things are. Hello?
We have you, Dan.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think this is probably the closest to a no-brainer in investing. Something that's simple, not complicated. You don't have to worry about it, and it seems like a high probability of success. So, what could be better?
Fantastic.
When did you first learn about the space, the agricultural space, and have you ever invested in this type of thing before?
No, I'm really a relatively newbie to investing. I only learned about your operation this year. I'm more active in the Oxford Club, but I've come to realize that I think the kind of investment that you're involved in is probably safer, probably more profitable, and will make my retirement much more carefree.
Appreciate you joining us. We have one more. His name's J.J. Conway. J.J. Does have a lot of experience with investing. J.J. was on the tour in, I believe, November. J.J., you on the line tonight? Hello, J.J., are you there? Okay, for some reason we're not hooked in with J.J. Craig, you were on the tour. I know you had a lot of fun. Let me ask you one simple question at the end of it. You got a chance to meet 25, 30 people on the tour. What was your impression overall about the group? They came from various backgrounds. If you would, you know, just share with me and share with everyone else what you thought, how you thought the tour was you know, operated, how you thought it ran smoothly, and the kinds of things that people can you know, look forward to if they choose to go on the tour.
That'd be my pleasure. I think, like I said earlier, it was just as much of a social trip as it was an educational from a business and investment standpoint. A lot of people seem to connect on all different levels, and when you spend 2 days together and you're focused on the same thing, you have that common thread between you. You also realize you have great diversities in where you come from and what your kind of MO is, why you're there, and why this is interesting to you, and what you're actually going to do with it. And I think it was an overall package based upon, we had a very organized itinerary. We knew exactly what we were going to try and accomplish, what we were trying to show and share. And then the other part is when you have the opportunity to actually meet the people who work there, the people who are, when we had the Q&A with the attorneys who helps us with all the legal aspects of it, when you talk to someone who is part of the company who actually lives on site, and their spouse is part of it, and the families, how they, everything, it's not only the families that come together and kind of get to know each other on the tours, it's also the vastness of the families that live there and actually do this work and make this their career. And this opportunity just couldn't be great from that aspect. But the other side of it is there's just such little volatility compared to other things. I think that's the biggest takeaway that most people experience. They thought, this is for real. This is something that's very well organized, very well managed, in a perfect region for this thing to be successful, as it has been, as it will continue to be. And I encourage everyone to take a serious look at it because this is something we know is working and will continue to work for a long, long time.
Thank you, Craig. Go ahead.
We want to remind you that our next tour is March 22nd, 21st, and 22nd, on Saturday and Sunday. And if you can't make it with us in the next tour, we do have some upcoming dates in April, the 25th and 26th, and also in May, the 16th and 17th. If we haven't gotten to answer any question that you have, please email us at our address at info@precioustimber.com, or you can call us at 855-888-6288. And we thank you so much for joining us, and we will be doing more webinars which will keep you informed with digging in deeper into different subject matters as well. With that, Alex, any last words?
I just thank everyone for joining us tonight, and if you have any questions whatsoever, you can email me direct at awilson@precioustimber.com, and appreciate you taking the time, and I hope to see you face-to-face in the tropics of Nicaragua. Have a great night.
Thank you very much, everyone. We're looking forward to growing trees together. Bye-bye.